Another live on the bench. So for those of you that are watching this video after the fact, which will be most of you, I have found a 1992 Squier Stratocaster, Korean Squier Stratocaster, and I'll show you that now. I've just got a bit of an awkward filming situation in here because it's not rigged up for it. But here we go. So it's a black, rosewood neck Squier Stratocaster. And this guitar was bought by a family in the early 90s who then very quickly kind of tucked it away. And it has been in its case for nearly 30 years. And you can tell. If I show you what these frets are like, hopefully it'll come across on the camera. But I don't think I have seen frets that are that sort of green and brown and oxidized ever. So I'm not sure to what degree I'll get them shone back up during this stream, but that's what we're going to give a go. So, like I said, we're going to go over the whole guitar, bring it back up to a nice playing and feeling guitar. I'll just show you the neck and stuff, because actually the condition of the guitar is very, very good. I mean, there's no fret wear. The neck, although currently has too much relief because it's been strung up the whole time, although very much so not tightly strung up, but there's no twisting in the neck. Like I said, no fret wear on the guitar at all. So I think we'll be able to get this pretty good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place you all, like I said, I've got nowhere to put a phone or anything. I'm going to use this to clip the phone to something and hope that doesn't mess anything up, and then get straight to it pretty much. So like I said, for those of you that are joining after the fact, that's what I'll do. And whoops, there you go. We nearly went 20 feet down the stairs then. Maybe around that sort of angle will do. And I'll bend down. So yeah, what was I going to say? Those of you that are watching after the fact, future me will put a link in the description of this video when it's all finished, so you can see where it is, and then you can just skip through this to various points and see where we're at. But just to recap, main thing is going to be what I can do with these frets. How good can I get it? All of these screws and stuff have oxidized, so I'm going to be wire brushing those, getting them nice and sort of, basically like they haven't been rotted out. We'll see how we get with that, and then it will just be a case of setting the guitar up. These tuners, they feel okay, but after this is ended, I probably will end up doing a bit more work for tuners and stuff like that. But let's get to it. Might as well start straight away. So I'm just going to start by pulling the strings off, which I'll do quite slowly. They're not under a lot of tension. But I don't want to shock the neck too much. I mean, they're turning all right, so I suppose they're probably still okay to use, but they're not the best tuners anyway. And these strings, by the way, are probably older than YouTube itself, which is which is insane. I'm surprised they haven't snapped already. So they're, no tension on there at all. Let's get rid of them. They feel horrendous. You would not believe. They just feel like aged, wrinkled, dirty, just horrible, horrible strings. I will show you the fretboard again on this guitar, because I have never seen frets, I don't think, that are quite so, well, just oxidized and unused and abandoned. It's going to be interesting to see with the tools that I've got how much life I can bring back into them. But the main thing is absolutely no wear. There's no signs that it's been wrecked and then abandoned. It's purely just been bought new 30 years ago and just abandoned in a case ever since then. So we'll see. I'll probably take the back off at this point. I'm not sure. I haven't got the view count or comments up, so let me see if I can do anything about that. We're early in the stream, so there's probably no one yet. How do I see this? All messages, there we go. I think messages will come through now, but again, I don't know. And you are perched about 20 feet in the air, so you might take a tumble at some point, but we'll see. Let's get this back plate off. I'll talk more about the guitar as we go along, and to be fair, there's a good point to be made. Like these guitars, these Korean Squiers, I have seen them go for sort of 250, something like that, around the £250 mark. That screw doesn't want to come out. Let's try a different top. And honestly, I don't think, if you've got £250 to spend and you want a nice guitar and you're looking at these Korean Squiers, I think that £250 is probably better spent on a modern guitar that costs that much, because I just don't see the value in these old Squiers, these old Korean Squiers, to that extent. You know, they're quite nice in some ways that you get in rosewood, and some like the maple neck here is a really nice neck, but I don't think it's £250 worth, considering what we're going to see under here is, you know, very cheap electronics, a very cheap old bridge, very cheap machine heads. You know, a modern guitar is probably going to be better value in that sense. The Japanese Squiers, like the Silver series and stuff, I regularly see them at around the £400 mark. And there's a stronger argument for those, but even then at 400, I think you're likely going to find, you know, a better guitar. But you know, collectability value, there's an argument for that. So inside the cavity then, as I said before, you know, just that cheap bridge, 3 springs there, look quite heavy duty springs to be fair, and super tiny little thin wiring as well. So nothing crazy high quality, but no reason to doubt that it wouldn't work, you know. So I'm not too worried about things working. They will all get a good clean and stuff as we go through the guitar. But it's just a case of getting these potentially 30-year-old strings off the guitar. You know, they're, like I said, these strings are very likely older than YouTube itself, and they feel it. Let's get them out and get rid of those. So I'll give you a better view of these frets now, without knocking the camera off. But hopefully the camera, I'm just using my phone here on the front screen, so it's not an ideal setup, but can you see the greens and the browns? It's just horrendous. I've never seen frets so moldy and dirty in all my life. But like I said, no actual wear, so I'm thinking I can bring some good life back into these frets, and that's what I'm going to do. I think I'm going to do that as a first job, to be fair. So I'm going to mask this board off now. So if you're watching this later on, you can probably skip this bit, because it'll just be a case of masking everything off. And I just know that on the camera they will not be showing up as bad as they are. They're a mixture of gold, brown and green when they should be shiny. We'll go through the board, mask them all off, and then get to work with some quite high grit fret rubbers, work our way down through the grits, and then get some metal polish and the Dremel on them as well. And we'll see where that gets us, because at this point, like I said, I've never worked on frets quite this dirty before, so I don't know how far just that will get us, but like I said, we'll find out as we go. Quite often I'll do this just one fret at a time. You don't have to mask the whole board off every time. You can just mask the 2 sides, do a fret and go forward. Doing it like this sometimes is unnecessary waste of, you know, using extra tape and everything, but this is going to need some serious cleaning, so figured start off by masking it off. I don't often do this sort of thing from the bench. When I'm streaming, I'm normally just sort of cracking on, but I figured it was quite an interesting guitar and topic, and I'm here anyway at this time, so why not? The rosewood is particularly dry, although not as dry as I expected. It's definitely dry, but I have seen worse on way newer guitars than this. I suppose it has been sealed in a case for many, many years. When I cut, by the way, I tend to cut at a very slight angle as I go along, and that just gives me a little bit more protection on the sides of the fret ends as well. And I'll tear off in that direction. It just gives me a little bit more protection on the edge for later on when I'm going over with the Dremel. It quite often slips as it rotates. Let me just double check what's going on here. So I think I'm all good. Yeah, why not? It's all good. It's quite weird doing these streams because you're well aware that most people will see it after the fact. So you have to be kind of thinking like, what are you saying to those people rather than anyone that's actually watching now? It's a weird one. Very fresh, sharp blade is handy for this. If you've got a dull blade, it's twice as difficult to cut in between the frets. Like I said at the start of the stream, if you just want to see what this guitar looks like when I've finished doing all this, future me will link that in this video's description. And then you can just flick through this video and see the various sort of stages that we'll go through. This will probably take me about an hour and a half, something like that, and then a bit more tweaking tomorrow, no doubt. Just to give you an idea of how long I'm going to be talking to myself for on this stream. And I do apologise for anyone in advance about the camera setup and stuff like that. It is just the front of my my old camera phone, and I know it won't be the best, but like I said, I figured I'm here working, so why not try and have a chat with a few people along the way. It's just crazy to think that for nearly 30 years this guitar sat, you know, indoors, locked away in its case, never thought about, never used. And hopefully by the end of the stream we'll be back to being, you know, a proper guitar. Let's not forget about my coffee. Although coffee at 7:30 is probably not the best idea I've ever had. So like I said, I don't know how clear on the camera that is, but if you can see those frets, they're a mixture of brown, green, they're completely dull, very rough on the top. There's actual like physical, you know, roughness to them. And that all needs to go. 30 years of just basically time and time alone, no one's played it, has turned these into, you know, antique looking relics, really. Not the sort of relic you want. So I'm going to go through the various fret rubbers. So I'm going to start with the, you know, the pretty heavy one and just see how far that gets us before I get the Dremel on there and, you know, using some cutting compounds to just to really try and bring them back to life. So, and at this point, I don't know, excuse me, I don't know how good they'll look, but we'll find out. I've got high hopes, put it that way. And now I've got even higher hopes, because this, with the higher grade rubber, is already just coming off and buffing up. And there isn't any wear at all. This was literally bought in the early 90s, and, you know, as it goes, son, daughter gave up, and the family just tucked the guitar away and, you know, forgot about it, basically. So this is pretty incredible. So with one pass of the high grit rubber, or a couple of passes, that's the difference we've got there already. That's pretty incredible, to be fair, and I know that that's going to just keep getting better and better and better. I might actually just do a few passes with the other grits just to compare like the direct results fret to fret, and then I'll do the whole lot. And you know, if a guitar doesn't have fret wear on the first fret, it's very unlikely to have fret wear anywhere else. This will be the shiniest this fret has been, like I said, since before, you know, a lot of people on YouTube were even born, sort of thing. So let's have a look. So just with a few passes on the various grades already, I know I'd much rather be playing on that than that. And this will get better with the Dremel polishing as well. So that's it. I'm going to go through the whole guitar now. I'll probably be pretty quiet. I'll just crack on, and if I notice any comments come up, then obviously I'll answer them. I'll pass over with the course first across them all, I think. I don't think there's going to be much of this rubber left by the end of this. Do the ends there as well. Don't forget those, they look very strange. In terms of the net relief, by the way, as well, I checked this before I went live, and, you know, just general experience gives me a rough guide of how much I need to adjust it, but obviously that'll be fine-tuned and checked. But I will make an adjustment probably pretty soon once I've done this, because I've got a rough idea of how far it needs to go, just because I've done it, you know, 100 times or whatever. But it's always worth double checking. Honestly, I've never worked on frets that are so... I've worked on frets that have barely anything left, like my own guitar at home, but that are just, you know, completely tarnished to absolute maximum, you know, dirtiness sort of thing. But yeah, they're so easy to bring back to life, and it's just mad. it's just great. Usually this coarse grade rubber usually makes the frets look really crap because it dulls them off, of course. But but here, just the difference on the dull to where it was is absolutely massive. It is a time consuming process, but it's worth doing it step by step rather than say skipping straight to the polishing, because I'll learn about this guitar as I go. I'll notice if there's any, if there is a weird bit of wear or if a fret has lifted. I'll be more likely to notice that as I take my time. And at the end of the day, this guitar will be owned by someone at some point soon, and it deserves to have the time taken on it to make sure that they've got, a decent guitar. These are a bit more stubborn, it seems, around this area. Taking a bit more elbow grease to get off. About halfway on the first pass. I want to talk about the finish on this as well, right? I'm assuming it's original finish because, like I said, it was bought new and just left. But back then, they definitely used a way thinner finish. It's still poly, but it's super thin. Although that could have to do with, if you didn't know, these Squier, vintage Squier, as you'll see them listed, although the necks are nice, a lot of people really like them, the bodies are actually plywood on these, which isn't exactly something you'd get excited over reading in a spec sheet, but they are plywood bodies. It was the Japanese Squiers of the time that got the, much closer to a proper Strat in terms of spec. I really don't know why these old Korean Squiers seem to command, any good money at all, to be fair. It's not to say they're bad guitars, they're not, but they're not, they're not the holy grail of Squier or anything like that. A new classic vibe is probably a much better option. Kingdom funding. I am in Hereford. Comment just disappeared, so I am noticing comments are disappearing, so I might have missed some, but if not, cool. Yeah, so I'm based in Hereford. I'm going to have very dirty hands by the end of this. Amazing work. Thank you. It's not amazing yet. I'm hoping it will be. This guitar deserves to be brought back to life. It's basically served a life sentence. You get 30 years in prison. That's basically what this guitar's had. I'm going to need new fret rubbers, I think, by the end of this. Have you serviced any Gibson inspired? Yes, I have. I've had a few of those in stock, the black cherry ones, and they are very, very nice guitars. I'm a huge fan of the Gibson Classic 57 pickups they come with. The thing I don't like about them though And this is just a preference thing. I'm not keen on those Grover locking tuners that it comes with, the weird like 3 twist lock type ones. But yes, I have serviced those guitars before. And I do consider them a hidden gem in the Epiphone lineup. That's all 21 frets with the first pass, and the difference, if those of you that saw this at the start or you're just skipping through, the difference is already, you know, truly night and day. It's, you know, that is looking, probably especially on this crappy camera, it's probably looking like a normal, you know, a normal fret job now, but many stages remain. I have to keep going back to my coffee. Right, let's go on to the next pass, and then I'll go another pass after that. So I'm on a medium grade now, just to remove that kind of dullness. And then I'll do a fine grade, and then I'll do the polish. I did consider doing this at home so I could, you know, use my proper camera and all that, but it's a lot of kit to lug home, and then I'd have to sit on the floor because I've got no bench, so. That heavier grade stuff has really got a lot of the gunk off. Now it's just about bringing out that shine and smoothness. I'm getting pretty warm as well. As is this neck. So while I'm doing this, I am being mindful to not just be going across the top. I am just, you know, going down into the sides there as well, just to clean off that hidden sort of side of the fret, if you like. If anyone's watching and they know the size of a 90s Squier truss rod before I go digging through my Allen keys, it'd be really cool to let me know. That would save me a bit of time. I'm assuming like 4.5, something like that. So, little pass with the second grade. Hopefully the camera will pick up. You know, they're coming up a little bit more now. Slightly less dull in sort of flat silver. And now I'll go over again with another finer grade. And then I'll get onto the Dremel, which will, you know, finish them off quite nicely. I've got to say, the ends themselves, obviously this would have been, you know, as is, are lovely. They really are nice. There's, you know, I've had new guitars that require much more work than that, you know, so that's kind of where the foundation to the values of these comes from, is that the build quality in areas like that, things like the nut, things like the fret ends, maybe used to be, you know, a little bit higher on certain models than they are today. But as someone who does all this stuff day in, day out, I don't really buy into that, because you can, you know, you can do that easily. This Squier is from 1992 and has been locked away in a case since about 94. And this is the first bit of daylight it's seen since then. It's not a Japanese one, it is a Korean one, but like I was saying before, you know, the values of these I've seen going a little bit daft. And, you know, if someone asked me, is a Korean Squier worth 250 to 300 pounds? No, it absolutely isn't, in my opinion. Not unless you're, you know, you're buying it for reasons other than just to have a guitar. Like maybe you're a collector or something, then it might be worth a bit more to you. But I don't see these as, you know, 250, 300 pound guitars, because there are modern guitars that cost less than that are probably better. And even when I've done all this work and, you know, it comes with a case and everything like that, I will be way, way, way below that, what, you know, with what I sell it for. Because I don't believe it's worth, you know, 250 quid. But I do enjoy bringing it back to life, because it's had, you know, 2.5 decades of being hidden and not played. So, bit of coffee. So that's where we're at now. And again, I do apologise for the, I know this camera quality isn't great, but if you're around at the beginning or you want to skip back, that is just crazy, crazy different. And, you know, a million times better. Already, this is probably probably not far off, you know, a budget factory finish, if not slightly smoother already. That's all it takes. As long as you haven't got really worn, uneven frets to worry about, and I have checked this before, you know, and we do have level frets. We don't have any twists in the neck. You know, it doesn't take a lot of work to get a guitar that's not great up to feels nice, you know, and we're going to continue to do that. So this is what I tend to use on not all frets, but just a box standard tin of, well, tube of Autosol. And I reckon I've probably done maybe 100 guitars with this tube, and it's nowhere near, you know, you really don't need to use a lot. But this stuff on, you know, on most frets is awesome. I highly, highly recommend, you know, as a final polish, because it does a great job. Although it is messy. This is amazing. I don't know if it's going to blow up, but thank you. Be nice one day. So all I'm doing is just literally getting, I'm sorry, very, very little tiny bit at the end and treating it like a bingo dabber on the top of the frets. Just putting on a very, very small amount. Because that is literally all you need. You don't want to go too crazy with it. It's just not necessary. I've got to say though, I am very impressed by the stock fret ends. I expected to have to do something with those, but they feel fine. They really do. They're even sort of almost, you know, slightly conical. They're not just flat, you know, slanted cut. So I'm quite impressed with that for such an old cheap guitar. we are going to lift the scratch plate off and everything as well in this video, because then pots are going to be very, very dusty. And I'm curious to see what's under there as well, you know, because I'm sure they're crappy little pots and ceramic pickups, but you never know. This is a weird time for Squier. Now and again, you do get a crossover of parts that should be on higher end models. Same with Fender of the time as well, especially Japanese stuff. Right. So all this is, little multi-tool. You can get these for about 20 quid. Polishing bit, you probably spend more on these than you do on the multi-tool. That's the ridiculous truth of it. Hopefully this won't be too buzzy on the camera, because it is right next to it, but let's turn that up a little. Right, so now if you're watching this later on after the fact, would be a great time to skip back 34 minutes or so and see the difference. Now already we've gone through 3 grades of fret rubbers, and then on this one we've done that as well as the polish, and you know, I can see the difference here, but I'm hoping the resolution your end, you'll be able to see that difference. Much nicer to play on, and will just make the guitar feel a lot better. And yes, I have just realized how stupid I am grabbing the neck when I just put auto sole on, because now I have metal polish fingers. But never mind. If I'm doing this at home, any chance the tool would damage the frets? Not really, as long as you're using a proper polishing bit, which is literally just essentially a compacted cotton wheel. There's no real danger of you doing any damage. The only thing you could do is, as it's spinning, so I pretend that's spinning, and it then slips, and then you end up, you know, marking your sort of fretboard and stuff like that. That's always a danger, and it's always something I've got in the back of my mind when I'm using one of these. I probably will get one of the big like sanders, and then I can just rub the neck up and down, but you know, for now this is what I use. So what I mean is, if that slipped now, this bit, which is spinning very, very fast, could do damage. Lovely. But just to answer your question a bit more though, I would absolutely recommend anyone gives this a go with their guitars, because you'll be so pleased with how much better you can make it a guitar. And in here, every single guitar that comes in goes through this process, just because I know how much better it makes the guitar feel. So, hopefully I'm trying to get the light to just capture that. If you saw this at the start and you saw that now, you know, what are we on? 40 minutes. And bear in mind, I've got a camera rolling, which is unusual for me on the bench. So you could say probably half an hour of your time will transform, you know, the feel of the guitar. But what I'm going to do now is just figure out what truss rod. It's absolutely full of dust in there. What tuners would you change the Epiphone? Sorry, it's gone. It's really not the best. I wish I'd just keep them there. What tuners would you change the Epiphone 1959s to? Is that the recent Epiphone 1959 reissue? I wouldn't change the tuners on them. I had that guitar, and I thought the tuners on them were really good. If you check out my Eastman video though, the most recent one, I can't remember when that was, but I put the Fun Wheel vintage style Grovers on there, because they are my favourite Gibson style tuners for ear-side tuners, because they keep the vintage look but they're modern and feel great, so I'd go for those. Right, let's have a look what we got. I'm thinking 4.5 if anyone wants to chime in, so save me messing around. That'd be very much appreciated. Might be more like 4 actually. And again, I'm probably not going to get this bang on off the bat. Yeah, it's a 4mm. It feels good. It's never been rounded off. But I know that the neck relief in this guitar is way too high, and experience alone tells me it's probably a good half turn too loose. So that's what I'll go with. And then I'll adjust from there once it's strung up and stuff like that. So I'll go in a little bit more. Truss rod feels good. So it's not, you know, it doesn't feel broken, or you can normally tell it's a tactile feel thing when you do a truss rod. I'm going to go with that. That's going to be my guess. It could be out, but I know it will be better than it was. Right then, let's address this fingerboard, because that's the next thing. And then, actually, do you know what? No, let's leave that on there a minute. I want to do these screws on the scratch plate. So you can see rust, you know, very dull. We're missing a switch tip, so I'll dig out one of those. Now, the way I'm going to restore these, it's not really going to be, you know, as involved as the frets, but I'm going to put a wire brush on the end of these, raise the screws so they're safely away from the guitar but still in place, and just brush over them, and that will get rid of all that surface rust, and it won't damage the screw in any way, fingers crossed. And just a steady hand to make sure I don't slip with a wire brush. So this bit is perhaps, you know, your mileage may vary. Proceed with caution and all that. I need to find a suitable wire brush. God. I should also wear goggles because I know little bits of wire will be, flinging out, but I haven't got any here. So I will go ahead. There we go. So let's do the switch one first because that's like the worst one. Threads are nice though. Again, it's never been apart. So all I'm doing is I'm just raising that screw. Maybe you can see it like that, just enough to give the wire brush clearance. The best thing to do would be take it out and put it in a vise, but I haven't got one here at the minute. So this is how I'm going to do it. I'm confident that it'll be all right. So this is the one we're going to be doing. You can see it's just rusty and migging. Let's see what a little pass over with the wire brush does. And a bit of housekeeping, clean up this stuff. Right. Obviously winding it in a bit. That's the downside. There you go. You could put some masking tape. Oh, sorry, Simon. I didn't know you were here. Welcome along. You could put some masking tape under the screw head. Yeah, you could. I'm being a bit lazy with this one, to be honest. I'm confident that it'll be fine and good enough, so I'm just going with it. But now, bearing in mind it was a lot worse than this one, that's acceptable. You know, this guitar's 30 years old. That looks absolutely fine. And the screw hasn't been rounded out or affected in any way. All the screws like that will look absolutely fine. It's just a case of doing it to the worst offenders. There's one or two on here are fine. It's just, where the air's got in or whatever in the last 2.5 decades has not been kind to some of the screws, and it just looks a bit minging. Raise that back up a bit. I've got to be honest, I didn't expect him to wobble in so fast. There we go. So again on the switch there, they're now both looking pretty much as you'd expect. You wouldn't say they were rusty and horrible. It's just a case of doing it with some of the other bad ones, like the pickup rings on this close side. Pretty bad. So let's get this one. These are going to be longer, so I might actually wind them out a bit more. Okay, you're going to be a pain in the ass. Yeah, I'm going to have to get the scratch plate off of those ones. Yeah, that's fine. I can do that. Right, I need to take the scratch plate off anyway, so I think I'll do that now. I'll clean them up as I go along. Lovely. I always make a line and I know where I start and where I finish, so they always go back where they came from. I kind of like this part because you never know what you're going to find under a scratch plate, especially on a Strat. I've seen all kinds of things end up under there that you just can't explain. But I'll be honest, I'm not expecting to see, you know, super nice quality under this scratch plate. See, all these are okay, these screws. That one could definitely do with a little bit of tidying. I do need to get a vice though. That is definitely something that will come in handy. I wonder how much wire we're going to have to play with as I lift this. Oh, I missed a screw because I had tape over it. My bad. So, let's have a look. So I don't have a huge amount of wire to play with. Yeah, everything under there is exactly as I expected it to be. If I bring my phone a bit closer. Whoops. Hang on, sorry folks. So under here, look, we've got the original ceramic pickups, the tiny little pots, and the sort of PCB style switch just there. You know, it's cheap components from the early 90s. It's exactly what I expected to see. And it's part of the reason why I don't understand why these guitars have the value they have, because at the end of the day, like you'd get better than that now on a modern budget guitar. So it does confuse me as a player a little bit. It's all in the necks to me. That's where the value is on these things, because the rest of the guitar is not great, you know, compared to modern stuff. Let's put you back if I can. There we go. So I am going to clean out these pots because, again, I know they're going to be pretty dirty and dusty, just with switch cleaner. I actually saw the dirt come out of that pot, so definitely a good choice. Rotate the pot. It's very, very stiff because it hasn't been moved in, you know, 20 odd years. I'd be stiff as well. But they are quickly loosening up. And these cheap pots have a natural kind of stiffness to them as well. But it's definitely getting a bit better. A lot better, actually. Crazy. Yeah, that, oh my god, that feels brilliant now. Definitely some work to get that loose. Trying to breathe the stuff in. Would you replace the pots or the pickups? Right, that's a brilliant question, right? Because most people would go for the pickups because you're spending money and you want to get the most for your money and you want to notice the difference. But I have changed pots alone in guitars like the perfect example would be any of the vintage guitars. So like the Lemon Drop and, you know, the V6 and stuff like that. Just changing the pots in those things adds a whole nother level of, you know, playability and character to the stock pickups. So 100%, unless you hate the pickups, you do the pots first. It's cheaper and you'll be surprised a lot of the time. I was, very much so. like I said, unless you know you hate the pickups, then, you know, it doesn't matter what the pots are, you're going to hate the pickups. But yeah, most of the time, do the pots first. I won't be doing that on this guitar because I know it all works and this isn't my guitar, I'm not trying to make it the best. Although, it's tempting, I must admit. They feel much, much better. They actually feel really, really nice and smooth and just the right amount of feel to them. Not too stiff, not too squirrely. But that should be more than enough contact cleaner. I can feel myself breathing it in, and I've got no windows or anything in here. Yeah, that all feels great. Happy with that. I'm going to tighten that screw up a bit. That was the one from earlier on. Just get it nice. Right, any more screws that are pretty bad? They're not horrendous. I might give them one go over, but the rest of them are, maybe that one there, that's poking out anyway, so. That's much, 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 much better. Interesting that it's routed HSS. Forgot to mention before. I expected, honestly, to see a swimming pool cavity under here, meaning the whole thing's routed out. But it is HSS. Most modern Fenders, even like the Jimi Hendrix ones and stuff, where you've got the reverse, they're all mounted HSH. Is generally how you'll see them mounted, routed. Sorry, but this one's HSS. So. Little nerdy detail that I just noticed and find a little bit odd actually. Right, let's get all them screwed back in. Again, I've lined them out so I know where they're going back where they came from. Which I think is important when the guitar's really old. It's probably important anyway, but especially when the guitar's old. So to recap then, if you're just skipping through this later on, we had started out with the mankiest frets I've ever seen on a guitar ever. And now they're pretty damn, you know, they look as good as new, honestly. We started off with stuck pots, although they did work, and now they're nice and, you know, nice and smooth. And lots of rusty screws, wire brush, got them nice and tidy, you know, but not, you know, they don't look brand new, but it's a 30-odd-year-old guitar, or 30 years old, so they're very, very passable. And that's pretty much where we're at. And I've been doing this for an hour. So, you know, an hour's work has already got us way further along than we were. And realistically, I could have probably cut that down by, you know, another 15 minutes or so. Pickups are mounted very, very high. It's a real bug of mine on Strats. I never like pickups high mounted. It doesn't sound right. So I think next step is going to be fingerboard, because it is very, very dry. It is rosewood. It's a generous thick slab of rosewood as well, which you don't see on a modern budget guitar ever, basically. I do miss that. So we can get that looking better. I'm not sure at this point whether I'm going to finish this off in this stream, because I'm curious to use. I've been playing with this stuff, this Monty's Relic Wax. So I'm kind of tempted to get the fingerboard, you know, very nice and clean, a bit of hydration in it, and then slather it in this and leave it until tomorrow. Because yeah, I just think that would be the best thing for the guitar rather than rushing it now. And frankly, it's 8:10, and you know, I've got a house to go to and all that sort of stuff. Let's get this off. I'll show you this fingerboard, how sort of dry it is. I do usually run a bead down the side first, and then when it comes to this bit, peel that off and it lifts them. But because of streaming, I forgot. And I'm now regretting it. But yeah, it's a good tip. Run a bead down there first, and then you just peel it off, and they all come off. Saves you messing around. I don't know what this guitar would have retailed at in the early 90s when it was new. I have no idea, in fact. Does anyone else know? Maybe someone who's watching would know that. So a Squier standard Strat in 1992. I suspect probably around the same money that the Bullet Strats retail for today, I would guess, but I don't know. So if I show you the board, that's what we're dealing with the board. It's not, honestly, it's not the worst I've ever seen, considering how long this has been abandoned for. It's really not that bad. You know, it is dry, but it could be a lot worse. So first of all, what I'm going to do is clean it. Excuse me. Where is it? Highly recommend this stuff. I've been using it for, you know, well over a year. In fact, I've got literal litres of the stuff in back stock. Now, the reason why I recommend this stuff, I'll get down and show you, is particularly the restorative, which I've put in a spray bottle, is it lasts like ages, months and months and months. You will not notice your guitar getting too dry with this applied properly. For probably, I would, you know, twice a year is probably all it needs. Whereas when I've used lemon oil and stuff, because that actually acts a bit like a solvent, lemon oil is great for loosening up very dirty fingerboards because of the, I guess, the acidic nature of it. It's good for cleaning, but it's not good for hydrating your fingerboards at all. And especially if you're someone like me who does this maybe day in, day out pretty much, I find the lemon oil irritates the hell out of my skin and I get blisters and all sorts of problems. Whereas this stuff, no issues with skin whatsoever. So it's just good stuff, and I highly recommend this, and I won't use anything else. Yeah, that was a finish cleaner. Yeah, that was lucky. Too much talking, see? Not enough concentrating. So let's spray all this finish cleaner on here, and that's just going to lift any, you know, dust and random bits of crap. Like I said, this guitar was bought new 30 years ago, say, and it was never played, so there's not actually any sort of, you know, dead skin or anything like that to get off, which is nice because it's pretty gross. I had a guitar come in the other day and it must have had about 3 mil of dead skin on every fret, which I peeled off, and it was a little bit disgusting because it wasn't my skin. One little tip though, don't do this before you mask the board, because you'll find the tape will not stick and it'll be annoying. So a lot of this is actually soaking in rather than just sitting on the top, which tells me, you know, gives me an indication of how dry it actually is. But yeah, it's you can see it drinking it pretty much. Poor thing. But you can see that there's hardly a lot of dirt coming off. You know, this thing was just not played. It was bought, and you know, as is often the case, it was just forgotten about, sort of thing. Let's get a fresh piece. So what I think I'm going to do, I do kind of want to get this finished in this stream, because it's just that like thing that's don't leave a job unfinished. I bought a Silver Series Squier from Chandler's. Cool. I have a guitar from Chandler's as well, or had. Sorry, it's gone. It was 249, still got it and love it. Yeah, so I spoke about the Silver Series Squiers earlier on. I had one in stock about 6 months ago. And I didn't take the mick with the price. I see them going at £500, not uncommonly. And I don't think that they're worth that amount. And you know, you could take that £500 and buy a modern guitar that was just as good. But with the Silver Series in particular, I do see the argument for it. Whereas these Korean Squiers that have been going up in value as well, to say £250, £300, that I don't understand. You know, we've seen what they're made of. Plywood body, those, you know, very rudimentary electronics. You know, the only good thing about them really is the neck and the fretboard. If that's worth the money to you, then fair enough. But I don't see them being that valuable. And like I said, even with this guitar, having all the work it's having, will be way below that when I list it for sale, because I just wouldn't take the mick. So I can show you that fingerboard now. Just a bit flatter, a little bit cleaner, and I did get a bit sidetracked, didn't I? Yeah, so about finishing this guitar, I'm going to do that tomorrow, because I want to give this guitar, I want to give it this relic wax. This is a, you know, this is a rosewood fingerboard, something you don't get now on affordable instruments, and I know that this stuff will not only hydrate that rosewood properly overnight, but it will darken it off, and it will just make it look, you know, twice the price that it actually is. So I'm going to do that. Monty's relic wax, I bought this. I have nothing to do with, you know, well, I do know Monty, but I have nothing to do with him YouTube universe wise and all that. You know how it goes. If you can hear that, there's a rally company just over the road, and they're very often doing stuff with old rally cars and stuff. So you might be able to hear it. So with Monty's relic wax, or this sort of stuff, you want to put on just whatever you think you should put on, and just double it. You have to proper drown the stuff in it. And it won't stain your frets or anything. You might think, why have you done all that with the frets only to plodge this on? It will be absolutely fine. It won't make any, you know, it won't make any mess of the frets. It will look messy, but it won't stain them. It will come straight off. So I'm going to apply this until I can physically see a waxy layer over the top, which is happening quite quickly, to be fair. filthy stuff though. This is definitely a dirty job. Weird smell as well. It's almost like candles, like it's just weird. But I think when I come in tomorrow morning and I look at how this has acted overnight, I'm going to be glad that I did this. And I will put a picture up on the community. Well, there'll be a link below in this description in this video, probably tomorrow afternoon, with this guitar completely finished, and you'll be able to see sort of where it's got to and how it looks. Compared to the start of this video, which was you know, a guitar that was just unplayable trash basically because it was so disgusting. But that, I've got to say though, that's one thing that I do miss on a modern, you know, a modern affordable guitar, is not having pieces of rosewood like this. It used to be taken for granted. You used to be able to get a lovely slab of perfect rosewood on the cheapest guitar. And obviously that's not the case. Now it's very, very much so a premium feature, you know. It's not even a thin slab either, it's a good thick size. So that's going on nicely, to be fair. You could even put more on. And I might. What you want to be careful of with this though is don't allow a build up in between the frets. If you sort of notice it, because it naturally will butt up against the frets. And because I'm going to leave this for 16 hours or so, that will change the color and you'll end up with like frets, 2 dark bits, slightly lighter, frets, 2 dark bits. And that's a danger because it is going to stain. So just make sure it is evenly applied, because you want it to just look like a lovely natural dark piece, not that you've gone in and painted it or something. So that is a danger with this stuff. Like I said, if you're curious, check this video tomorrow night and there'll be a link under it with how it's turned out. That's probably enough. I want to get my hands covered in it. So, excuse me. So you can already see that, you know, it's darkened it off really nice, and it'll pretty much, you know, like I said, dye the fretboard, so to speak. And as well as hydrating that rosewood as well. And I will go over it tomorrow with the other stuff that I've shown you before, just to make sure that hydration is locked in nice and deep. So that's it for the neck. I'm going to leave that until tomorrow. I'm a little bit concerned about these tuners because they were cheap tuners to begin with, and although they still feel okay, I just know that they're not going to be the best. So I might look at changing those, but again, is it worth it? I'm not sure. We do have a missing selector switch to deal with. So I have got some spares. A little bit lighter than the rest, but not too bad. I'd rather have it than not have it. Is it a good fit? That's the question. Don't want to force it. Oops. It might be a touch small. Yeah, it's a touch small, which is a bit of a pain. Okay, I'll find another one. There'll be one somewhere. But I definitely want to put one on there. It just looks so cheap when they're missing, even though it's only a 20p piece of plastic. I will give this a quick clean up, just to make it look a bit better. Just with this stuff. Finish cleaner. Where's my microfiber gone? I can't believe how thin this finish is though. These days you get a much thicker finish than this. It's still poly, like I say, but it's very, very thin. I may put a little bit of metal polish on this jack plate as well, because that's got some signs of pitting and stuff. Even just cleaning this off now, you can tell that it was never used, because all that's coming off is just, the general dust that's managed to get on it inside the case. There's no sign that it was ever played enough to even get any like skin on it or anything. It's crazy. You can see that plywood body though. You can see where like it's got all the little orange peel where the paint's sort of absorbing in different places. Very, very low quality body on these old guitars. Just quickly eyeball these pickup heights to where I know I like them to be roughly, and then I'll go from there later on. They all work as they should, no issues there. So, just for the benefit of anyone skipping through later on, this is where we're at now. A 30-year-old Korean Squier, tucked in a bed for 20 odd years, in its case, is now somewhat close to being a decent guitar again. But I am now going to leave that to soak in overnight. Excuse me a minute. Light chat. Yeah, I'm gonna, sorry. Can I turn this camera around whilst it's on? Yes, I can. Very nice. So I am now going to leave that to soak in overnight. I'll probably put a touch more on there and make sure it's spread out a bit more. And like I said, I'll ping a link in the description below tomorrow when this is all finished, and you'll be able to see, how it was and how it began. Because this guitar isn't, it's not a crazy expensive guitar, but to me, it's still worth putting in that effort to make it a nice guitar for someone who's actually going to use it. you know, like I said, I don't necessarily buy into the hypered, you know, over exaggerated values of these old Squiers. I think that's a bit well, unnecessary if you're just wanting to play it. But nonetheless, it's still very much so worth saving. So, like I said, I know that most people will be flicking through this after the fact. So, if you've watched along, I very much appreciate that. I'm going to go home now, probably play some guitar. And then, like I said, I'll be back tomorrow to finish this. And then I'll link it all below afterwards. So, thanks for watching. And if I can figure out how to end the stream, I will. Nope, that's not how you do it. I'm not going anywhere, folks, because I don't know how to end the stream. I guess you just press X. Yes, there you go. So thanks for watching, and thanks for tuning in, Kingdom, and good luck with doing your own guitar. Paul, how you doing, mate? I didn't know you were here. So thanks, Simon. Always good to know you're around. I'll catch you on the next video, which, by the way, I'm thinking will be my pedal. I've been wanting to do my pedal boards because I finally, after about 5 months of you know, saving and getting pedals here and there, I think it's all dialed in, it's all working, I'm happy with it, and I want to share that as well because yeah, it took a good bit of thinking actually, that board did. So I will see you at some point this week for another video, and thanks for watching.